All right. Hi, Facebook. I guess we're live on Facebook. We're live. We're live. We're awesome. We're live. Hello, Michelle.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Well, thank you.
So I'm Dallisa Hawking. I'm the CEO of Spirit and Spark. I'm a 5th generation psychic medium. I host Saturdays with Spirit. Michelle's been on the show before. We love her. She's super psychic. We were talking before we went live today, and she's like, like giving me all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, I know. So thank you. It's a pleasure having you back on. And we're talking about your near-death experience today, which we're going to get to. We just had a full moon yesterday.
We did.
Did you do any releasing?
I did, actually. I was exhausted yesterday. Like, I could not get myself started all day. I was just so tired. And that's the second full moon that I've been absolutely exhausted by. And I'm like, what is going on? And I know there's a lot of energetic release going on. And it's a lot of saying goodbye to people who aren't in your vibrational field at the moment. That's been going on for the last few months. And people just keep either removing themselves or they just kind of drop out of your world. Don't take it personally. They're not supposed to be there.
Yeah, I did. I heard that the full moon yesterday was a pink moon.
It was.
But lots of energy and the shedding. I was sharing with you, I've been doing this like daily, where are my feelings journal? And I list things that I'm releasing.
Right.
And then things I'm grateful for. And this morning was my egg sandwich.
Right.
So, I think it's important to even, because there are days, I think that everybody has the days where they wake up and they're like, I don't have anything to be grateful for, because they're like either in that low vibration of like anger or sadness or guilt or shame. There's always something that you can be grateful for.
Be grateful that you woke up.
Yeah.
It's the smallest thing, but it's the first thing you can be grateful for.
Yeah.
Be grateful you woke up, because at least you're getting another day. You don't know how many you're going to get. They can be limited. So just be grateful you woke up.
Yeah.
And then be grateful if you have family or friends that are around or that you can text. I mean, even if your friends are mainly on Facebook, at least you have some friends.
Yeah. So Easter, do you celebrate Easter? Or like what's your, because it's, for those of you watching it live, and even if you catch it a few days later, we're right around Easter time.
Right.
So I kind of look at it like a rebirth.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And so
absolutely.
that's how I look at it and align with Easter, which is beautiful.
It's lovely. We grew up in England, so at Easter time we'd have to walk to, because we were in Church of England school, you'd walk to the nearest church and you'd actually do, the whole service would be done and things like that. But the big thing for the British at Easter is the Easter eggs.
Okay.
Cadbury Easter eggs.
Cadbury Easter eggs.
And so, and not the ones you can get at Walmart. They are not the same chocolate, I'm just going to say. But a proper Easter egg is priceless. And this year I turned to my kids and asked if they wanted them. And they were like, nah, we're good. And I was like, oh, no!
What?
No excuse to bring it in the house. It was terrible.
Oh my gosh. My niece and nephew are too young to be watching this, but I bought them unicorn toots. They're little candies that look like turds. And then some like explosive little candies that are sour, and yeah. Anyway, I had a lot of fun as the aunt buying them ridiculous candy, but I'll have to keep the Cadbury eggs in mind.
International marketplace.
International marketplace. There you go. You heard it here.
That's right. Don't miss them. They'll be gone quickly.
Okay. All right. Good. Noted. All right. So here we are. We're going to talk near-death experience, which is actually perfect for Easter time with rebirth. And you have had a few different experiences with the other side, and you've seen different parts of it. So I'm excited to share it with our viewers today. So thank you for being willing to tell us these stories and things that you've been through. And of course, anybody watching, if you have questions, please comment, let us know, and we'd be happy to ask Michelle whatever your questions are or anything you'd like our thoughts and opinions on. I've done studying of near-death experiences with Dr. Raymond Moody, who's one of the world's leading experts. He's amazing. And my pediatrician growing up was the expert with children on children's near-death experiences. So I've always been fascinated. But yeah, let's just dive in, okay?
Okay.
So there are a few instances, as we mentioned a moment ago, where you've had these near-death experiences, where you've crossed over and seen things on the other side. Let's start with the one where you were in your 20s, and I love it. So I'm just going to let you go because I don't want to tell the story because I know it already. So go ahead, tell us the story.
So in my 20s, I had surgery, and the nurse was a little impatient, and it always takes me a long time to come out of anesthesia. And she was pushing me to eat something, use the bathroom, all those things. And I was, okay, well, I'm going to go do it. And then my blood pressure just bottomed out. And the next thing I knew, I was on the other side. First of all, there was the light. You whoosh through, and it's like a train. It's almost like a train, but it's really the speed that you're moving at. And then I was in this beautiful, ornate, old-fashioned church, like the ones I grew up with. And in the church, there were all these people. There was my nan, my granddad. There were all these people that I recognized but couldn't tell you who they are. But they had some kind of energetic link to me. And my nan took me by the hand, and she looked at me and she says, "You got to go back. You're not supposed to be here yet. There's children you're supposed to take care of." And the next thing I knew, I was back in the bed in the hospital, and my mom was, "Oh, she's better, it's okay, and the nurse was like, "Oh, I shouldn't have pushed so hard." And that was my first near-death experience that I actually got to the other side.
So let's talk more about this instance. So you go into this church and you see what you believe to be hundreds of people that are connected to you. Mm-hmm. Some that you knew in this lifetime, and others you just knew that there was the connection with. The train sound, I think, is fascinating. So when you saw the light and you started to move, you were moving quickly, and you think that's why it sounded like the train going by.
Yeah, it was kind of like, anytime you're in one of those circumstances where the wind is pushing past you and there's like that noise, it's like a vibrational noise, but it was the impression of going really fast, and that's why the closest I could recognize at that time was it was like being on a train, because that makes that noise when it hits the wind. So.
Okay, yeah. When you were talking with it was your grandmother, correct? Is it your
my
nan?
nan?
Your okay. Could you hear it like us talking, or how did you understand what it was that she was saying to you?
It's not like when you speak out loud and you hear another person. It's like you hear them out loud, but you hear them in your head. Mm-hmm. So it's very similar to when you do a psychic reading and you're hearing someone talking to you. You can hear them plain as day as if they're stood next to you, but that's not actually what's happening. So it's almost like a telepathy situation but you understand fully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great way of describing it. I've heard other people's near-death experiences with the telepathy where it's like you can have a full conversation, but your mouth isn't moving.
Right. It's more like an exchange of thoughts.
Okay. How long do you think that you were over there for?
Well, in Earth time, just a couple of minutes. In their time, it seemed a lot longer.
Yeah.
Because the connections were so deep, and it felt like I was saying hello to a lot of people. So it feels like you're there a long time, but it was actually only seconds, maybe minutes. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Because time is something we develop. Time
is relative.
Yeah. There's no such thing as time on the other side. So, it's always...
Yeah, it's always a fun trip.
It's always a fun trip. And you've had several fun trips, so we'll talk more about that. Okay, so the kids part. So she says, you've got to go back.
There are kids you have to take care of.
Okay, so I know more about this story, which is why I'm asking you to tell them. Why do you think that message was so important to hear? Like, what was going on in your life at the time?
So at the time, I had been ill for a while. I continued to be ill for like another year. When I started to get better, my best friend from high school was going through a divorce. He had a couple of kids. I was just basically their babysitter, but the oldest used to call me Mommy Shell. And that was before we dated or anything else. And then Michael, when he was put in my hands, he was 6 months old, and I looked at him and I was like, oh, I want him to be mine. Like, there was just an instant connection. And over time, of course, my husband got custody of the kids. The mom kind of just decided to step away. They're my adopted kids now, but they were always meant to be my children. It was just that I wasn't well enough to bring them into the world when they needed to come into the world in order for them to be the people they are today. And the whole experience means that we had a soul contract where that was the role I was supposed to play for them. Their role was supposed to be my children. And so that's like really, you have the bond, biology be damned.
Yeah.
I really don't believe biology makes a parent.
No. I think that kids and parents are pre-selected, predetermined, part of that soul contract agreement.
Yeah, and that's why not all parents stay in your life. And when they move out, it's so that the door can open for something better to come in. Mm-hmm. And I just believe that that's the way life works. And I believe that you're supposed to have certain traits and you're supposed to come in and be certain people. And sometimes in order for you to be those people, biology, DNA, you have to have somebody else's. But that doesn't mean that you're not soul tribe with the person you end up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautifully said. I agree. I totally agree. Okay, so there was another instance in your 20s where you checked out and then came back. So tell us just about that experience.
I had a CAT scan and I was laid there and they were putting the iodine in. And I had signed to say I wasn't allergic to iodine. I'd always been able to eat fish and strawberries and things like that. And I'm laid there and my throat started scratching and then it started closing, and I said to the nurse, I can't breathe, because it was starting to get to that point. And she looked and she goes, oh my God, she's covered in hives. And they didn't have the Benadryl shot in the room, which they're supposed to have the Benadryl shot in the room. And I heard them code blue it, and ER doctors came running, and somebody went running to the pharmacy to get the shot. And I was laid there and I saw the white light, and the white light's coming brighter, and I thought, uh-oh, these idiots are going to kill me. So so I'm laid there and I'd been learning to meditate, and I thought, right, I'm just going to concentrate on breathing. And I started with very little breaths because that's all I could get in. And by the time the doctors got there and the shot got there, all of the hives that were covering my body had gone, and I was breathing normally again. And they said, how did you do that? And I said, no, my mom's across the way. And she just saw a code blue and all the doctors run into my room. You get her first, let her know I'm okay, and then I will explain. And I was like, I realized you guys didn't know what you were doing and I had to take care of it myself. So I started breathing and I came back, and that was okay.
Wow. But that light came in and you knew.
I knew. I was like, uh-oh. This is not it.
Yeah, please not today. No. Yeah, but it's amazing. I mean, meditation, we talk about meditation all the time and how powerful it is, and how if you can focus on your breath,
it can really make a difference. I mean, it's one of those things, it's the simplest thing. Forget about clearing your mind. It's impossible. Your brain works on its own. But if you concentrate on the breath work, if you just concentrate, in for 2, out for 4, or hold, whichever way works for you and makes you feel the most calm, once you find that, you can do that in any circumstance and literally get your vibration to straighten out so that you can handle the next thing coming along.
Yeah, speaking of next things that come along, so there's another instance that you have, which wasn't too long ago, a few years back.
Right.
Walk us through that experience.
So I'd had a couple of surgeries. The first surgery meant that I needed the second surgery because other things went wrong, because that's my body. And after the second surgery, they needed to know I could eat before I could leave the hospital. So I ate enough to get out of the hospital and then went home and still couldn't eat. I was vomiting. Anything that went in, I vomited. Water, tea, like whatever it was, I couldn't get or keep anything inside my stomach. And it made me really, really ill. And I was literally laid on the bed, just sleeping my life away with an IV. They had to come and give me vitamins through the IV. And I would just lay there. And as I was laid there and sleeping or resting or whatever, I would travel to the other side, and then I would come back. And it was like a slow introduction to the other side. So as I was going over to the other side, I would go and I would like go to where the Akashic records were, which was like a beautiful old-fashioned library with little domes. And I could go and I could see what had happened in my life in clear vision. And I could see it from the other person who I was interacting's point of view and my point of view. And there's this amazing feeling of just pure love. And then I could leave there because I was traveling back and forth, and I could go and I could just walk the other side. And I came across this house, and it was like an old farmhouse with a wraparound porch. And there were all of our past animals just sat there, like they were just there, and they were so sweet. And it was like, oh, we wait to see you. And it was like, oh, they all kind of just lived in peace in one little house, because that's like our family pets, and that's where they all were, and you can visit them. And it was amazing. And the energy. And the thing is that, so they were teaching me the transition process. So you're going from here to the other side, and there's a process once you get there. And I was getting to do that process gradually, because I wasn't having an instant death. I was having a transitional one. And so I would go and I would be in the Akashic Records room, and I had to relive things of my lifetime that I still had emotions about. So either I was still hurt by something, or I had hurt someone else, and I had to see it from their point of view and my point of view, and get to a point of forgiveness of self, forgiveness of somebody who hurt you, and just release it. It's no longer yours to carry. And it's really hard when you know you've hurt somebody and you're surrounded with this ultimate love, and you have to forgive yourself. Mm-hmm. And that was the hardest part, is like saying, oh, I did this and it hurt someone, and oh, I feel really bad about that, and oh, I'm being loved, but I feel guilty about this. And the idea is, that's purgatory, is having to face what you've done that's hurt somebody else, and release it and let it go, and then move through it in order for your soul to have fully evolved. Because we learn all these lessons on this side, but then we get to the other side and we have to sort of go and reevaluate it from a different point of view, and see everybody's point of view. And you come to know what was behind their actions, what was behind your actions. And once you get to that forgiveness, that's when you're done processing. I've read many, many books that say it can take 6 months, it can take a year. That's the purgatory process, is being in a state of a place that is so much deep love and understanding, and having to come to grips with the fact that you weren't perfect, and you weren't always that loving, you weren't always that understanding, you weren't always that forgiving, you weren't always on your best behavior. Mm-hmm. And you have to come to grips with the fact that we're not supposed to be perfect on this side. Mm-hmm. And we're not supposed to be perfect on the other side, but we put these conditions on ourselves because we're taught as we're growing up, you need to sit properly, you need to eat properly, you need to behave properly. And when you don't, you feel bad about it. And it's all releasing that to get to where your soul needs to be, so that you can start addressing what you're going to move on to do next.
I love that. The past pets at the house is incredible. I think a lot of the viewers will appreciate hearing that. So many of us love our pets.
Yeah, and those souls come back in. You can recognize them. Like, we had a cat in England, and I felt his spirit come back in, and he's currently being a little bit of a booger in my house again.
That's amazing. Do you think that there are contracts with animals as well?
I really do. I think that there's nothing that we interact with that we don't have a contract with. Like, even when it comes to eating the meat on your plate. My son is vegetarian. He wants to be vegetarian. I'm all good. He can do what he needs to do. That's his That's always been his way. But I understand that the animals that come in to experience life in a certain way, and we all learn lessons from it. And that's why we evolve, and there's more and more vegetarians, because we're evolving. But we can't have straight to the end point, or we don't evolve ourselves. So it's like my middle son. He used to scream blue murder when I'd go in the shower. If I said I was going in the shower, he would sit by the door and scream until I came out. So I started taking showers whenever he wasn't around, because otherwise I would just have to listen to him screaming at me whilst I was in the bathroom. And I got the message that he had actually been with his mother at Auschwitz.
Oh, wow.
And so every time I'd say I'm going in the showers, that's what was triggering him. He was only like between 1 and 2 years old. So I did my research, and when he was taking his naps in the afternoon, I'd sit there and I'd say, you're in a new life now. Mommy is not going to die from going in a shower. You're in a new life, let it go. And very quickly, like it only took a couple of weeks, he stopped doing it.
Wow.
Because when you talk to somebody whilst they're asleep, you're getting to the subconscious.
Yeah.
At 1 and 2 years old, you can hardly have the conversation with them, but that was very real to him. And so, and my feeling is, yes, it's horrific. Everything that happened with the Nazis was horrific. But it all happens for a reason. We have these soul contracts and we're supposed to learn. Without Adolf Hitler coming down and being as evil as he was, doing the horrendous human experiments he did, we wouldn't have the life-saving operations we have today for kidneys being, you know, when you need a kidneys transplant, when your heart needs work on. It was his evilness that actually moved science so far forward. So in life, it doesn't matter how awful something is, something good is always going to come out.
The contrast.
It's the contrast.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the bad, you don't appreciate the good.
Yeah.
But we should still learn from those lessons, because the reason they happened is to make us learn, and so that we don't go back and do that again, so that we don't behave in the same way, so that we're not repeating the mistakes that have already gone on before.
Yeah, and we can recognize it in our own lives even.
Right.
You know, where are the catalysts for growth? You know, the dark nights of the soul are generally getting you ready for the propelling forward if
Right.
you recognize it for what it is.
Yeah, we have these really awful experiences in life. We're hurt by people. Just everything can suddenly upend, your whole life upends, you lose your job, you don't know which way to go. And then you wait a little while. And all of a sudden you look back and you go, that's why that happened. You know, it's like when you do a reading and you're telling somebody something and they look at you like they have no idea what you're talking about. And we talked about this earlier. And you're like, just take it with you. Let me know when it comes through. And it always does. You always get the phone call later saying, oh, remember how you said that? Well, guess what? I know why that makes sense now. And you're like, and this is why you don't change the message.
No, I never do. Nope.
Even if someone sat there and insisting you've got everything wrong, you say, well, that's what's coming through. And sometimes it's not even their message. It's their mother's message or their sister's message. And they'll be talking about, well, I went and I had this reading and da-da-da. And they'll go, oh, that was this, and this. And you're like...
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those things. And it's a matter of having enough faith in your guides to know that they're going to always send you in the right direction.
Right. Yep. Where do you think heaven is?
It's all around us.
It's all around, yeah.
We like to say, oh, you know, it's up there, but, you know, it's kind of like a superimposed thing. You know, you've got 2D, 3D, and Heaven D. And they all have jobs, and we all have responsibilities because we're all trying to help and guide each other. And, you know, we were talking about the spirit whisperers. And there are some souls who are up there who literally will whisper in your ear an idea, and you think, oh my God, that's brilliant, I'd make $1 million on that, and you don't do anything with it, and a couple of months down the road somebody else did, and you're like, oh. That's because they need to put it out, but you still have free will. And when it's the right time, it will be yours.
Mm-hmm.
But the right idea will be yours. And sometimes that's not the right idea for you, but it is preparing you for the next idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that the Spirit Whisperer was like, spirit and spark. And you know, as you and I discussed, I had owned another company before this that was like 5 college degrees in one.
Right.
And it was like, I definitely had dark nights of the soul for sure. But now looking back, I'm like, oh, that's why you put me through that. Because then I could just jump right in and go with this. So divine timing is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
There are no mistakes.
No.
It's
really, we do get the free will, so we get to make the choice when we're ready. We don't get pushed in, but you do get yelled at when you miss your opening every now and then.
Yeah. Another question that comes to mind is, do you find that we all have certain exit points? Like, do we agree before we're born that we're going to have a certain number, or maybe they're already pre-plotted on the pathway of life of when we can take an exit should we choose to and pass away?
I do. I think that we come down and we have certain exit points that we're allowed to take, and we get to choose whether or not we do. I was very homesick.
Homesick, like heaven sick.
Heaven sick.
Yeah.
I was homesick, and I think that's why I got so many options so far. But I'm not actually supposed to leave yet because I haven't completed everything I'm supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those situations where you sort of go, aw. And but then at least I'm lucky because I know how to meditate and go visit the other side. Mm-hmm. And that is like the biggest gift they can give you. Mm-hmm. So, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely have set exit points. And that's why when somebody does pass away, for me, it's always like, well, then it was their time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, including suicide. A lot of people, they say it's a sin, it's the end of the world, you're not supposed to do that. It invalidates your contract with God. But then I would say, no, it doesn't. Because people's family around the suicide victim then have to learn and evolve from that. The circumstances of death are just that. They're just circumstances. Mm-hmm. The death is the same.
Yeah.
The ending is the same. And it's about learning to handle it. And just look at how many people after, you know, somebody in the family died of cancer, somebody died of a heart attack, somebody died of suicide, how much they take that with them and try and do better in the world because of it.
Yeah.
And suicide really propels people to try and be nicer to each other. How many times a year do you get the suicide prevention number on your Facebook page? Because people are like, oh, I know somebody who did. Let's push it out there. Let's try and get these people help. Well, you might not think that makes you a better person, but something in your subconscious is saying, hey, I need to try and help people. And that is always invaluable. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a relative of mine years and years and years ago commit suicide. And they died and came forward as their spirit to their parent and said, please know I made it. I made it to the other side. I'm okay. And although, of course, it was a tragedy in so many ways, I think it's important to know that they can make themselves known and say it's okay, because I think there was a lot of misconception or still is around, do they go to heaven or is it this sin where they're not going to make it to the other side? And this relative came forward and made it very, very clearly known shortly after the suicide that she was okay.
And I think that just goes to the point of, we're given rules by man. That's what religion are. They're rules given by man with a divine guidance. And the idea behind all of these religions is we get born into them to learn the lessons that they teach. Every single one of them is valuable. Every single one of them is legitimate in that it gives the people who follow it what they need for their soul growth. And if you can just trust the process, It doesn't really matter what you believe. They all have value, and what we have to learn to do and what we have to evolve to do is just respect our differences instead of using them against each other, because that is the worst thing we can do.
Yeah. We all signed up for our own race.
And we're all supposed to learn our own things. We're
Yeah.
not supposed to learn what the guy next door learned, you know? If we were supposed to learn that, we'd have been the one living that.
Yeah.
So we have to remove ourselves from it and go, you know what? My lessons are for me. They're for my soul development. And I've come back and forth to this planet so many times at this point. I'm like telling them all the time, don't make me come back again. But there's always something new to learn. And you might not be here necessarily as the student. You could be like my little boy in Auschwitz, there in order to teach a greater lesson. The people who sacrifice their lives so that other people can move through it quicker, so they can learn something bigger. Like, how valuable are they? You know, it's like, since it's Easter, I'm going to tell you my theory on Easter. So we have Jesus, great guy, 2 thumbs up. And he died on the cross so we could all be forgiven for our sins. That's my Church of England education right there. And you have the guy Judas who turns him in. Who made the bigger sacrifice? The guy who is heralded as the king of Christianity, the Son of God, or the guy who for all eternity had to live with the fact that he turned in the Son of God, who was also his very good friend, who he also loved. So their soul contract was, hey, in order for me to die and become this figure for history, in order for me to create this religion that other people are going to learn to be better to each other by, I need somebody to sacrifice themselves and become one of the most hated figures in all of history.
What a contract that was, huh?
That's a contract. So people have asked me, oh, who do you want to meet in heaven? And I'll say Judas. And they go, oh, he didn't go there. And I'm like, he made a bigger sacrifice as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
It's all perception.
And I was just going to say, everything is perception.
It's all perception.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, if you think that Jesus, who died on the cross in order to save us all, in order to forgive all of our sins, whatever they would be, wouldn't look at the guy who turned him in and allowed him to become who he is today to so many Christians around the world. If you think he didn't have it in his heart to turn to Judas and say, I forgive you, I love you, you're welcome here, then I don't understand what your point is.
Yeah, I tell my clients all the time that the people that have been the biggest challenges, the people that have really crossed you in major ways, those are the people that signed up to play that role for you. That's where your growth comes
They're
in.
your biggest teachers.
Yes.
And imagine signing up in order to be hated by you.
Yeah.
Imagine making a contract that says, I'm going to be the person who hurts you worst in your entire life. That's a certain kind of love you cannot imagine.
Yep.
And it's the kind of love you can only understand once you're on the other side and looking at it from somebody else's point of view. And you're surrounded with that. I don't even know how to describe the feeling of love.
And appreciation and gratitude.
And just total awe that you feel. And the comfort level. And it's an amazing energy. It really is. We're lucky we get to experience it when we start doing readings and people are crossing over, because we get like that little, you know, it's kind of exciting, but it makes you feel happy and it makes you feel peace. Until it's over and then your mind's going over it 10,000 times and you need to go to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. This has been so fascinating. I appreciate you, and I thank you for telling your story. There were so many nuggets in there that I think will really resonate with the audience, and I just find the whole thing fascinating.
You've never had a near-death experience?
I have never had a near-death experience. Yeah. No, I know you're giving me a look like,
lucky you.
No, I've never had a near-death experience. I don't necessarily want to provoke one either. So please, like, don't like put me in that situation. But I love learning through people, because I don't think we necessarily have to go through the experience ourselves in order to understand it and appreciate it.
No, that's why we have teachers.
Yeah.
That's why we have teachers on all different walks of life, is so that we can share our experience and have shared experiences on how to deal with them.
Yeah. But thank you, and enjoy your rebirth, your day of rebirth, and everything that comes with it. And thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, we will catch you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to spiritandspark.com to learn more about what we're up to, and enjoy your holiday weekend. Bye, everybody.